Well, you got a big win yesterday. If you are a Jackson County homeowner, good morning. It is great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. This was a huge victory yesterday from Interim County Executive Phil Lavoda, who made the announcement that he has ousted Gail McCann-Beatty, the county assessor.
Gail McCann-Beatty will no longer be the assessor of Jackson County. I'll speak with Ms. McCann-Beatty about that, and she's has the opportunity to give me her resignation or she will be removed from office.
By what date? What was the deadline?
The next 24 hours.
So think about this. Imagine the audacity of the county assessor hired by Frank White, done one of the worst jobs in public office, well, not technically office, but public service that I've ever seen, not just here in Kansas City, but anywhere that I've worked all over the country. This Jackson County assessor role and the way that it was handled by Gail McCann-Beatty was as disingenuous, dishonest, borderline illegal when you think about how this assessor willfully ignored the Missouri State Tax Commission when it came to tax assessments in the last cycle. And then you have her boss get removed from office by a will of the people through a recall effort. You then on Tuesday night, 2 days ago, you have the county voter decide by a 9-1 margin that they want to elect their next county assessor. A direct response to what has happened here in Jackson County with this office in particular. And the interim county executive, Phil Lavoda, says, I'm here to accept your resignation. And you have the audacity to say no? Wow.
She's a real beauty.
That is something else. Good on Phil Lavoda. I didn't know what to expect. Listen, I heard a mixed bag of reviews on the guy, to be totally honest. He's going to be on the show this morning at 8:20. We're going to get his full reaction to his decision to remove her as the county assessor in Jackson County, and relief is coming. This has been such a nightmare for Jackson County residents, and relief is coming. Now, you're not going to get refund checks or rebates or anything like that. What you are going to get are credits. So that means, if it'll be tied to future assessments, of course, and you will just have to pay less as they figure out how to roll out these credits over likely several years. So that's what's going to happen here moving forward for Jackson County residents. It's not going to happen overnight, but just know you have somebody in there in Phil Lavoda, who once again is a Democrat, but an old school Democrat, to his credit, a common sense one, and a guy who knows why he's there. That's why we talked about this going into Tuesday with these local elections. These people have a major impact on your day-to-day. Frank White's administration caused a tremendous amount of pain for regular citizens right here in Jackson County. And it took forever to finally get him out, but you know what? You did. And you did it by a wide margin. 70+% of you decided, I'm done with Frank. He's out. And now his successor, on an interim basis, Phil Lavoda, has decided that he is also going to remove the county assessor, who got in the way as well. She was just as guilty as he was when it came to doing what the state ordered them to do to get relief for the people. And what the state said is, 15%, that's your limit. That's what you have to do. And the county basically said, oh, yeah, we're going to court. That's what we're doing. So what you're going to see is refunds applied as credits on property tax bills, and they will be spread over 3 years. This will apply to 2023 and 2024 bills, and the assessments, of course, as we know in Jackson County, are done every 2 years. It's not going to be one full bill, and it's going to take time. And it's only applicable to people who saw their values go up more than 15%. So that's what this and who this applies to. But yesterday was a great win and a great day for Jackson County. Now, I guarantee you that Gail McCann-Beatty's going to sue. I guarantee you.
Right.
You know and I know that's coming. And I don't want to speculate as to where that lawsuit might go, but I will say every tool in the toolbox will be used. Whether that's driven by race or gender or who knows what. But this thing is going to get ugly. If you think that she was not going to resign, then get fired, and then just say, well, gave it my best, give it the old college try, nah, this thing's going to get ugly. And all I would say to Phil Lavoda and folks on the Jackson County legislature, stand strong. Stand strong. Stand strong. Stand up for the people. Do not bend the knee, and make sure that you got the folks back. Because for too long, the people in charge of this county had no interest in having the people's backs. And now they do. Now, speaking of having the people's backs, that's still not happening in Washington, D.C., as the shutdown continues on. And now we know that the Federal Aviation Administration announced it will reduce air traffic by 10% across 40 high-volume markets. So that news came down last night, and our buddy John Holt over at Fox 4, I saw this last night on his X account. He was the first place I saw it. KCI is not on the flight reduction list per ABC and the FAA. That release is expected to be formally put out today. Reductions will begin on Friday. And once again, Kansas City is not on that list.
Crop dusting season.
But there is an incredible amount of pain that is going to be felt right now around the country because of this. And I said, you know what? With Thanksgiving around the corner, and now you've got food stamps, obviously, potentially not going out. I mean, that thing's hung up in the courts. It is one big mess. And let's be clear. Democrats, Republicans, I think, are overreacting here. They're all worried that the way the election results went on Tuesday was somehow a condemnation of the shutdown and blaming them for it. Guys, you got to just stand strong. That's it. You have done nothing wrong in any of this. You have done what both parties have done for years successfully until the Democrats decided because they don't like your policy, they are not going to vote for a continuing resolution to keep the government open at its current spending levels. Do not overreact here. Do not blow out the filibuster and back down. Let the Dems own it. And Schumer's in hiding. He's nowhere to be found. And you know what? That's because he doesn't want the blame. But you got to keep bringing it back to him. He owns this. The airlines admit as much. The unions admit as much. Let him own it. You don't blow up the filibuster for this. No way. That's what he wants you to do. And if that's not obvious to you at this point, well, you know what? I've got more evidence to back it up. And we'll get to it coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio. Last night, Josh Hawley was on with Will Cain on Fox News. We run Will Cain's podcast here at 9 p.m. on KCMO Talk Radio. And the Missouri U.S. Senator didn't say he was ready to blow up the filibuster. It was a very political answer, if we're being totally honest here, which we always are on KCMO. But he basically was trying to, I think, suggest that he is more open to ending the filibuster, to reopen the federal government, than he ever has been. And listen to what Josh Hawley had to say in a back and forth with Will
Senator,
Cain.
you did signal today that you would be open to the idea of doing what President Trump has asked, and that is doing away with the filibuster. Well, obviously, that would be advantageous right now to reopen the government. Any concerns at all about what that could look like in the future when Democrats have control of the Senate?
Well, I will just say this. Every day that the Democrats force the shutdown to go on, every day that they deny payment to our great federal law enforcement, every day that they hold hostage needy families, the president's arguments about the filibuster get a lot more attractive. And I think what he's saying makes a lot of sense, which is that the Senate needs to work. It needs to produce. Congress needs to produce. And if the Democrats are just going to, if this is going to be the new norm, Will, if they're just going to hold us hostage constantly for the next 3 years, we cannot allow that to happen. So I would just send a message to the Democrats out there. If you don't want that to happen, if you don't want the filibuster to be changed, then come to the table and start getting reasonable.
Couldn't
But
you
if this
argue,
is your
Senator,
new
they
plan,
do want that? In fact, they do want to do away with the
do.
filibuster, and they could be baiting Republicans into doing just that, doing away with the filibuster.
Oh, they don't want it changed now, Will, but I think they do want the government shut down, and I think they'll do anything they can to derail the Trump presidency. We saw this in the first term. We saw them impeach him twice. We saw them investigate him endlessly. They can't do that right now, but they can keep the government closed. Yeah. They can try to impede his agenda, and they're doing that.
They absolutely are doing that. But to Josh Hawley's point there, he doesn't say we should end the filibuster. He just says it's more appealing than it's ever been. I hope he doesn't do it. I understand those of you who are out there saying, you know what, it's time to... Nope, that's what they want. That's what they want. It is a baiting game. And while earlier this week, I admit, we're having this conversation in real time. I didn't think 2 months ago we'd be talking about whether or not we should end the filibuster in the Senate because the Republicans proposed a clean continuing resolution. That means same spending levels, no new junk, no new spending, no new anything. And the Democrats won't vote for it. I really didn't think 2 months ago this conversation was going to be on the horizon. So I admit, I've kind of waffled back and forth on this. Early on, I said, no way. Heck, last week, I was like, maybe. And now I'm back to, nah, don't do it. And I just can't get myself to a place where you end this thing knowing full well I believe it's what they want. Think about it. What else is in this right now for the Democrats? What are they getting out of this? And what do Republicans often say? A lot of GOP voters have called into this show, have said this on social media, have talked about this on television. They've said Republicans never play the long game as well as the Democrats. Democrats are always playing the long game. This is another example of that. They want you to overreact. They want you to end the filibuster for two reasons. One, yes, there will be a day when they will use it. And then part two of that is it feeds right into their narrative that brought them in parts, not exclusively, but in part electoral success on Tuesday. Look at the tyrants and the kings, and you think they have momentum now? You just wait till the filibuster ends. You just wait to see what happens,
I'm going to have
John.
to get another outfit for all the rallies.
I know. They're going to need you at every rally on the plaza. I'm going to have
Everywhere.
to duplicate you, man.
Yeah.
We're going to need you in that fishnet tee all over Kansas City when all is said and done. There's going to be weekly rallies. So, yeah, that is absolutely. You think the No Kings rallies were big a couple of weeks back? Oh, you just wait till they end the filibuster, man. They are begging Republicans to do it. Begging them. And they so desperately want to see it happen. And I even, threw this out on social media, and I had some of my trolls out there saying, you guys could just end the filibuster and reopen the government. Wink, wink, nod, nod. You see?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That when the people are trolling me on social media here in Kansas City and suggesting, just end it, man. You could open up the government tomorrow. All you got to do is end the filibuster. There you go. They're showing you their hand. All right? Call their bluff. Don't do it. They literally, you're sitting there playing a game of poker right now. And you've got, I don't want to say you got pocket aces. You probably don't if you're the GOP. You never do. But you're sitting there with a nice solid hand. You got pocket jacks or something like that. Flop comes out, 2 of spades, 4 of clubs, and 7 of hearts. You're feeling good about your situation. Your opponent's sitting on, a 4 and a 6. They show you their hand. They got nothing. They go all in. Call the bluff. That's all they need to do here. Sit back and let it unfold. And now you've got airlines who are going to be impacted. You've got SNAP benefits potentially on the chopping block here. No one knows what exactly is happening on that front when they're going out. So the whole thing's an absolute mess. And you know what else is going on? Democrats want Republicans to think that Tuesday's election results were motivated by the shutdown. And Trump actually alluded to this yesterday during that breakfast he did with fellow senators. He said, see, we lost last night in part because of what happened here with the shutdown. We're losing on the shutdown. They want you to think you're losing because of the shutdown. They were always going to win on Tuesday night. You really think that there are die-in-the-wool Democrats who are not going to go out there and run to the polls because they're TDS or whatever else? This was their first chance to send a major message since Trump got elected. They were doing it whether the government was shut down or not. Please. You really think that random swing voter was out there being like, I was on the fence, but then the shutdown happened and I blame Trump for it. So, that's it, John. That's how it goes.
Yep, touche.
No way. Not a chance. So now you got to kick back. You got to realize the game they're playing, and you got to stand strong. And now with the Federal Aviation Administration set to reduce air traffic by 10% across 40 high-volume markets, someone's got to grill Chuck Schumer. I know that the media in D.C. is not going to find Chuck Schumer, or they're not going to find him in New York or anything like that. But is anyone going to press this guy? As people are getting impacted with food stamps, as people are getting impacted with their air travel, you got Thanksgiving coming up in 3 weeks. Anyone going to do that? And so far here in Kansas City, KCI has not reported ground delays as a result of staffing issues, but delays have been common in New York City, Dallas, Houston, Austin, Nashville, and D.C. The city saying yesterday the Kansas City Aviation Department has not been notified as of now if KCI will be one of the 40 airports subjected to the FAA's upcoming reduction in air traffic. But our buddy John Holt saying on social media late last night, Kansas City not expected to be impacted.
Well, we got a media or a terminal to pay for here.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so
I know.
We can't be shutting stuff down.
We can't do that, man. They got to charge you $12 for a ham sandwich with one piece of ham on it. I mean,
get those guest pass, folks. Go up there and have some lunch.
Yeah, that's right. You can't do that. You guys want to go over there today?
Go up there and see what's up.
Make
Park
a trip
in the
out of it?
satellite parking lot.
I got to go to Nick Haynes's, week in review show after this. So maybe I'm halfway there already.
Yeah.
Might as well keep going.
You're right there almost.
If you guys want to meet me there after the show, we can do that. Make a lunch out of it.
Okay.
All right. Well, in the meantime, there's still a lot happening here on a Thursday morning on KCMO, including the mayor of Kansas City, Quentin Lucas. He's going to join me at 7:35 on 95.7 FM 1 hour from now. We also have those Trans-Siberian Orchestra tickets that we will be giving away. So that is at 7:45 this morning. But the mayor of Kansas City, of course, he had to find his way into the New York Times in the wake of the election results coming up, or that took place on Tuesday. We'll tell you what the mayor of Kansas City had to say coming up next on 95.7 FM KCMO. New York Times saying, hey, Quentin Lucas, what do you think about Mamdani? That's right. The New York City mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani, Democratic Socialist, as he is dubbed. Some may call him a full-blown commie. Call him whatever you want. Just know this much. If you're in New York, he's looking for some money in your back pocket, John. So if you're traveling there next summer and you drop any loose change, expect Mamdani to pick it up real fast.
Yeah, you were mentioning names, and I thought of Fred Sanford, but then that reference may be too old for him. He used to call people, you big dummy. So I'm kind of thinking of that.
You got to save your old references for the 7 o'clock hour when Bill O'Reilly does his morning hit, okay?
Yeah, a little more apropos.
Yeah, exactly. Bill O'Reilly's morning update comes in at 7:15. That's when you're allowed to make your reference circa what year we talking here, John?
Well, that's from the 70s.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Early
All right.
middle.
Yeah. Okay.
But Red Fox is ubiquitous.
Yes. Fair enough. All right. So the New York Times writes here, 4 progressive mayors offer advice to Zoran Mamdani. Tips from young liberals in office. Manage the stress. Keep your mom off Facebook and plow the snow. Now, hold on a second here. Hold on. I'm going to ask Quentin Lucas this in 1 hour when he's on the show. Is he a young progressive or is he a moderate, a middle-aged moderate, now that he is a man in his early 40s? Which one is he? I need him to define what he is, especially in America today where you can't be defined by anybody else, right? You can be whatever you want to be. So is Quentin Lucas a young progressive or is he a middle-aged moderate? That's my question for the mayor of Kansas City. So they talked to 4 mayors. They talked to Brandon Johnson in Chicago. Okay. They talked to Eric Garcetti in Los Angeles. And then Michael Tubbs in Stockton, California. And then Quentin Lucas in Kansas City. Memo to the mayor, I'm not sure this is the company you want to keep. Okay? L.A., Chicago, Stockton, California. I just don't think that's really the group you want to be associated with. Call me crazy, but I think that's something you want to stay far away from there, John.
I'd put my money on him being the Jeopardy team captain out of all those.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. He will carry the team. There's no doubt about it. The mayor of Kansas City will put that whole team on his back. Maybe he wants to look better than them. I mean, maybe it's kind of like a tallest midget argument there. I don't know. But anyway, here's what the mayor of Kansas City told the New York Times when it comes to advice for Mamdani. Don't suck. No, that's not what he said. The New York Times writes here, like Mr. Mamdani, Mr. Lucas was 34 when he became the youngest mayor of Kansas City in more than a century in 2019. A proponent of free public transit like Mr. Mamdani, Mr. Lucas implemented free bus fares in 2020, only to see the program end this year for lack of funding. That's going to be the pitch, too? Our free bus fare in Kansas City ended because of lack of funding? Who's in charge of funding it? The New York Times writes here, Mr. Mamdani's victory reflects support for many of his policy goals like free transit or free childcare, Mr. Lucas said. But he must have a more intense focus on finding sustained revenue streams to pay for the programs. Mr. Lucas said here to the New York Times, on transit, our failure was not identifying a sustainable funding source. Mr. Mamdani has proposed raising taxes. Governor Kathy Hochul in New York has said that's a non-starter. A rabid football fan, Mr. Lucas made peace with the fact that he could not go to Chiefs games anymore and shout whatever I want and largely drink whatever I want. That's debatable. I've seen the mayor have a good time at some of these tailgates out at Arrowhead Stadium. I'm not sure that's entirely true. And I'm glad he's having a good time out at Arrowhead Stadium. I mean, I guess he can't be a total wackadoo while he's out there at Arrowhead Stadium. I suppose that, that is true. He can't go out there and go totally hog wild, but he's having a good time at Arrowhead. I promise you that much. He's having a good time, John. All right? Don't question that.
Right? He's not Frank White walking through the parking lot.
No, not at all. And then the New York Times writes this. Then there was the family. Mr. Lucas said he had wished before taking office he had gotten them off of social media. He said, quote, my mother would get into Facebook fights. It was random. Well, I will say the apple does not fall far from the tree because the mayor likes to get into social media fights as well once in a while. He embraced. That's why I usually just don't go there. I save all my commentary for Thursday morning at 7:30 when he's on the show. I want to get the good stuff out of him on Thursday. If I give it away on social media, then I'm in a tough spot. So that is something that I look at and I say, yeah, he likes a good Facebook fight or two. Just ask some of our listeners who've gotten into those Facebook fights with the mayor.
Yeah, no point giving your opponent the Cliff's Notes for what you're going to talk about, right?
Exactly right. Bingo. No doubt about it there, John.
He's quick enough on his feet. He can handle it.
He is. Absolutely. 913-408-7957. That's the text line and the studio line on KCMO. Pete, do you really believe the mayor of New York City would take advice from Quentin Lucas? Sure, why not? I mean, he doesn't really know what he's doing. The guy's never had a job. Why wouldn't he take advice from Quentin Lucas, who's been on the job for 6+ years now? I mean, if he was smart, he would take advice from everybody and anybody. When you're walking into the biggest job of your life by a mile, I mean, this guy was working for his mom a few years ago. And there's nothing wrong with a family business, but he wasn't exactly doing real work. He was on the mom's payroll for some joke of a job.
And yet his resume is stronger than Bernie.
Yeah. I
did write some books.
Yeah, exactly right. He's got Bernie beat. Bernie was living in a commune before he got on the government dole, so he's got Bernie beat by a hair. But, yeah, that's Oh, man. On the text line, so our mayor's admitting to the New York Times he finally ran out of other people's money to fund unlimited homeless bus services and toy trains. I mean, the New York Times is not going to put it that way, but you may be onto something there at 913-408-7957. You might be onto something on that front. So we'll ask the mayor about this New York Times piece. And yes, also the headline story today. And what is that? The headline story is Jackson County canning. Yes, getting rid of Gail McCann Beatty, the county assessor. So all that and more is coming up with Quentin Lucas next hour, and I can't wait to dive into it because he has been kind of keeping an arm's length from the county drama, even though, of course, he runs the largest city in Jackson County. He's kept an arm's length on Frank White and Phil Lavoda and all this different stuff. But you know what? Anyone who's a homeowner in Jackson County, anybody with common sense in Jackson County, left, right, in the middle, politics don't matter, has got to be happy about the fact that Gail McCann Beatty is out of a job. And I normally don't sit there and wish anyone to be out of a job. And maybe still right now I'm wrong in feeling this way. And you can tell me if that's the case. But I admit, I'm celebrating today that the county assessor, who was so aloof in her position, who was so unmoved and numb to the pain of her own county residents and what they've been through the last few years with these assessments. She was totally aloof in handling any of this, had no interest whatsoever in understanding the pain of Jackson Countyans over the last few years. And now she's out of a job. And I'm thrilled by that. Absolutely thrilled. And once again, maybe I shouldn't be, but I really can't help it. I really can. Oh, the nightmare might be ending, man. It might be finally coming to an end. 7:04. Good morning. Happy Thursday. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. So yesterday, Ty Masterson, the Senate president, came on this show in Kansas, and he talked about how they are not going to be able to redistrict Kansas in a special session coming up this month. That was the big top headline story. But then came the part about the Royals and the Chiefs and whether or not Kansas is really in play and what the December 31st deadline looks like. And Ty Masterson said on this show yesterday, as Yogi Berra infamously said, it's getting late early. Here was our back and forth. You've got this deadline on the Star Bond offer, December 31. When do you need something from Kansas or from the Royals or the Chiefs if there's a realistic opportunity to get these teams here with the December 31 deadline? When do you need something on your desk?
Realistically, it's got to be on the desk very first week of December at the latest. It has to be handled in our December LCC meeting, and we're looking at dates now, and the holidays never work. So we're looking at that middle, 17th, 18th, 19th in that range for a meeting, and we would have to have it ahead of time enough to take a look at it before that date.
All right. So they've got about 4 weeks to figure out whether or not they can get something into your hands. Do you see any appetite from the LCC to extend the offer beyond the end of the year?
I do not.
So you're saying this is it. This is it.
I think that's it. I mean, I think the most you would see is if we had to have some type of emergency meeting on the 30th or 30th, 31st of December or something, but you're not going to see an extension.
No. Okay. All right. So do you still feel pretty confident, or are you maybe wondering where exactly these teams are going to be since you don't have anything just yet?
Yeah, I'm still confident, although my own confidence is running out of time, so we'll see. And it's, that I'm assuming they've got, a ways down the road on their negotiations, so it'll be done. And once they make the final offer, they can come and bring it to me immediately.
That was Ty Masterson on the show yesterday. Tell me how excited you will be when this comes to an end. Hallelujah. Whenever this thing ends, we are going to do the greatest happy dance of all time. John Mayblood is back when we do that happy dance here when this comes to an end with the Chiefs and the Royals. But I genuinely do believe that Ty Masterson knows he can't extend this thing anymore. They can't. I mean, they got involved a year ago. they extended it to the end of this year, which they, in hindsight, I don't believe should have done. I said it at the time. They should have held firm on their date. I get why they did it. I do understand it. But now it's like, you know what? It's time to move, guys. If you really want to be here, then just be here. Come to our side of the state line, and let's cut a deal. But we're not going to give you more time to figure out how much more you can squeeze out of Missouri. We're not going to get played like that. I've always believed that Kansas was being used as the side piece in all this. I felt that way for a year and a half at this point. Because if the deal was that good in Kansas, they would have bolted a long time ago. It was used as an option. It was used as leverage. And yeah, there's still a chance. I'm not saying it's still not possible. But with each passing day, it looks less likely. And that's why you saw Ty Masterson at the end there say, yeah, I'm losing a little confidence. I mean, he didn't want to come out and just be that blunt about it, but he's like, I'm still confident, but with each passing day, I get a little less confident. That's more or less what he had to say on the answer to that question. And I get it because I wouldn't be real confident right now either. He said at the absolute latest, he needs something from these two teams coming up the first week of December at the absolute latest. And what did the Royals announce this week? The Royals announced this week that they would like to now do a survey of their fans. I mean, gee,
I'm getting pissed now.
You've got to be kidding me. 4 years into this, at the 11th hour, they're ready for fan input. My gosh. I mean, that just, once again, do your polling, do what you got to do if you're the Royals. But the notion that this is all going to come down to some kind of a Survey Monkey poll that the Royals send out to, a handful of season ticket holders is comical. These are generational decisions with billions and billions of dollars on the line. The time for fan input would have been a year ago when you hit the reset button on the whole thing. The time for fan input would have been 6 months ago at the very latest, when you knew you had this new deadline at the end of the year. You knew that North Kansas City was back in the mix. It was looking like Washington Square Park was falling to a distant third, and Overland Park still had a chance of potentially landing the baseball team. That was the time to send out some surveys, right? Explain to me the timeline of right now. You can't in good faith because there's absolutely no reason for it outside of optics, John. That's it.
I mean, do they really need to be confronted with the fact that fans want them to stay there? Right?
Yeah, that's a good point, too.
Well, that's the number one finding.
Yeah.
Will we find out that that's their number one finding?
Yeah,
I doubt it.
And we know that that's not happening, right? I mean, I know that there's there's still this, percentage of fans who are like, we're going to stay at the K. No, they're not staying at the K. Okay? It's not happening. There is no saving Kauffman Stadium. I've seen all the Facebook groups and things like that. It's not happening. No way, no how. But you're right, John. It will be used by some people to say, stay at the K, stay at the K, save the K.
Well, when you do the Parade of Homes tour and you go around, you say, hey, maybe moving's a good idea. This is a nice place. We don't have anything to look at to say, hey, why not stay at the K?
Well, that's true as well.
Impress me with something. Make me want to move.
Give me something to look at, right? We haven't seen renderings in, almost 2 years at this point since that first vote came around. And even then, we saw some nice, pretty photos of what it could look like in North Kansas City. We have not seen anything when it comes to Overland Park. Not a single thing. And maybe part of this exploratory survey that the Royals want to do when it comes to their fan base, maybe part of that, too, is a way to easily cross Overland Park off the list by saying, oh, boy, there's a lot of blowback. Now, they could listen to the show on a regular basis, and they could find that out pretty easily. They'd save a lot of money and a lot of time by hearing from callers and texters and people who live in that part of OP. That would save them the headache of having to go through this whole process of polling the fans, air quotes. But, nothing has been efficient. Nothing, frankly, has been all that orderly in the entire process. So why start now? Right? Why? Why bother? Just keep the good thing rolling, I guess. 913-408-7957 is our text line and our studio line on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Oh, my goodness. Some of you really just don't want to hear about it. And I get it. But when there's updates to the story, I got to share it with you. That's part of the job. I know we're all fed up with it, but don't blame me. All right? I don't decide the news cycle here. Trust me, I don't. I got nothing to do with the news cycle here. All we do is talk about it and then let you react. You can react to me. You can react to the team, the owners. I don't care who. But that's the beauty of this. It's interactive. It's all of us together. Quentin Lucas will be here in 20 minutes on 95.7 FM after a feature in the New York Times yesterday where he was asked to give Mom Donnie advice. That's, of course, the New York City mayor-elect. So we'll get to that. And the wackiest thing I saw in the wake of yesterday's election results, I mean, this is pretty sick and twisted stuff from a notable national name who's completely lost it. We have the audio next on KCMO. That's getting all the attention. Mayor Lucas was quoted in the New York Times yesterday about the election of Zoran Mamdani as New York City mayor, and we will talk to the mayor of Kansas City coming up in just over 10 minutes. We've got the TSO Trans-Siberian Orchestra tickets coming up as well in 25 minutes. They're at T-Mobile Center on Saturday, December 6th. But this is the scummiest thing I saw yesterday in the wake of the election results on Tuesday night. And it came from none other than the skis himself, James Carville, the Raging Cajun as he's dubbed. I mean, there is no one who looks worse on camera than James Carville at this point, especially now that people are doing podcasts and TV hits from like their bedroom. So they like pop on their camera on their laptop and, you know, the angles are all awkward and you can see, you know, when you're James Carville's age, you're 80-something years old, the angle better be right. If not, you look like a corpse. And that's what Carville looked like yesterday. I saw this clip of him talking about how Republicans are so weak right now in his estimation that he believes they could get a pedophile elected in the Democrat Party. Now, I am not kidding you. I'm not. He was talking about this guy, Jay Jones, who won the attorney general race in Virginia after text messages came out of this guy, Jay Jones, talking about obviously killing his Republican opponents and also wishing death on their children. And the guy won by 6 points in Virginia. I mean, just unbelievable. And Carville comes out yesterday on the podcast and he's like, yep, I bet you we can get a pedophile elected. Here he is.
On the Attorney General's race, I'm personally going to find a convicted pedophile and run him in a race just to see if he could beat a Republican. I'm not sure.
Something tells me that Carville wouldn't have to look far and wide.
Is that an announcement?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to say they're convicted pedophile could win. And by the way, the guy that was running against him ran a pretty good campaign and ran ads. And I mean, it just the most interesting thing, okay, drum roll, I'm going to give you all the most interesting piece of news of this cycle, even more interesting in Bucks County. The Republican legislator who released the text lost, and Jay won. Yeah, I mean, just a little tidbit. Hey, you got some baggage out there with Trump people. Just know that.
So James Carville's take is that Trump is so unpopular that Jay Jones won this attorney general race in Virginia and that he facetiously wants to run a pedophile because he thinks they could beat a Republican right now in the current climate. I mean, don't give some of these parties any ideas, all right? Something tells me they're like, wait, we're now opening up the door to pedophiles? To MAPS, as they're dubbed?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Minor attracted persons?
The acronym.
Yes. That's a good Carville. He is, man. He is. I mean, is that like opening up the door to normalizing pedophilia? Let's see how far we can push this thing. If your takeaway from Tuesday is, boy, they'll vote for anybody to push back on Trump, I think you're missing the point. The point to me is we've become so hyper-partisan that you have mothers and fathers who will vote for a man who wishes death on his political opponents, and these people voted for this individual weeks after a guy, a prominent conservative, was literally killed for his beliefs and for engaging with people that he disagreed with over their beliefs in Charlie Kirk. That's the story here. See, the story for James Carville should be looking in the mirror and saying, how did we get to this point where our party is willing to accept a guy like this and put him as the chief law enforcement officer in one of our most critical and important states in Virginia? And to simply say, well, it's all because of Trump? I mean, I suppose, but please don't preach standards to me. Don't preach standards about, Trump, he's so crude. When you've got this guy now and you're bragging about getting this guy into office and saying, boy, Trump's so unpopular, we could run a pedophile right now and be A-OK. Boy, don't tempt certain people, man. They might jump at that opportunity, especially if Carville is offering to run the campaign pro bono. You just wait, man. And who knows? He might do it because he's got such TDS. He might say, you know what? I'll get that pedo elected. All in the name of anything against Trump. That's how far we've fallen. That's how screwed up this whole thing is right now. That's how broken culturally and societally we are. And you can't sit here and tell me that this is cutting both ways. You can't do the yeah, but Trump thing with this. I mean, is Trump a bull in the china shop? Sure. Is he crude at times? Yeah. Is he out there with text messages talking about killing the kids of his political opponents? No. And if you don't think that that's like a bridge too far, if you don't think that's something that's completely unbecoming of a public official, or if you excuse it in the name of like Trump bad, I don't see how you fix some of this stuff. I really don't. I don't know what the end is here because you've got all this stuff coming out of Tuesday night. You've got obviously the filibuster that may be going by the wayside here before long. Sad to say, I'm not a fan of it, but it may end up happening. And then you're going to have swings in this country that you could not even imagine seeing when it comes to policy. I mean, this thing is going to be swinging like crazy back and forth in the years to come if that filibuster does come to an end, because you're going to see extreme crazy all over the place. And that is not good for anybody. But James Carville, I know we don't give away the award for Dope of the Day, but if I did have an award for Dope of the Day, sponsored by fill in the blank, he'd be it in a landslide win today. There's no doubt about that. And we just got done with a really lively conversation with the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas. Boy, that was one of, I mean, we've been doing this every single week with the mayor since COVID hit. 5 years, 5.5 years at this point. Every week, the mayor, to his credit, comes on this show. If we get a Democratic Socialist in office in 27, I'm not sure he or she will do that here on KCMO.
All you got to do is tell him we have a seat at the table. Air quotes, seat at the table.
Yes, that's all we have to do. But he's been coming on every week, and that was, I mean, boy, that was a memorable one between myself and the mayor. So appreciate him coming on. I wouldn't want to hitch that wagon to Mamdani. I wouldn't want to do it. No way. No thanks. Do not want a part of that. Nobody should want a part of that guy. Just say, hey, I would have written in, Robert De Niro or something like that, It's like that school board race I was trying to vote on the other day. There was no candidate I liked, so I almost wrote in Mark. But I was like, I don't want to put Mark in a tough spot. If Mark gets enough write-ins, then he's got to leave the job here. He's got to go be a school board member, and, that could get a little dicey for him.
Whatever I need to do for my country and my city.
And yeah, I almost threw you in there, man. I almost did it, but I said, no, I'm not going to do that to Mark. That wouldn't be fair. So, just avoid the Mamdani stuff. This guy, I'll tell you what, he's going to crash and burn. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to crash and burn, John.
Oh, he's got his pulse on the finger, right? Trump's the problem with New York City, obviously. Yeah. That's what he's talking about.
Here's I will say this much. I know there's talk of Trump trying to withhold funds from New York, and I appreciate what he's doing there, but I really want to see socialism fail and not allow them to point the finger at Trump. I mean, to your point, John, they may do it anyway.
They may,
But if Trump withholds funding to New York City, that gives them a very, very easy off-ramp.
It wasn't done right.
Exactly. I would say just leave the funding from the feds where it's at. let this thing totally crash and burn. Because if you withhold the funding from New York City, first off, I would fear what a future Democrat president would do with withholding funding to red states or something like that over who they elect. So that precedent does concern me. But I do think it's an important test, and I think there's actually money to be made on the back end. I know you might think of it as flushing money down the toilet, but actually it can come back to help the GOP, give New York its money like it normally gets, let the whole system crash and burn with the Democratic Socialist in charge, and then you can sit there and say, we told you so. So right now, the Supreme Court is debating the legality of President Trump's tariffs. And something that was said yesterday by one of the Supreme Court justices stood out to me above the rest. Could there be a time when a Democratic president decides that he or she is going to declare a climate crisis and as a result, tariff imports on gas-powered vehicles? Is that possible one day? Here was that exchange between Neil Gorsuch, who, of course, was appointed by President Trump during his first term in office, and one of the administration's attorneys.
It's a major question, though. Could the president impose a 50% tariff on gas-powered cars and auto parts to deal with the unusual and extraordinary threat from abroad of climate change?
It's very likely that could be done. That's very likely.
I think that has to be the logic of your view.
Yeah, in other words, obviously this administration would say that's a hoax, it's not a real crisis, but...
I'm sure you would.
Yes, but that would be a question for Congress under our interpretation, not for the courts.
All right.
So that was Neil Gorsuch yesterday, as they're hearing the tariff case, and this is obviously at the Supreme Court right now. The odds makers change dramatically on where they think this is headed. According to, this is Polymarket, they do overseas odds for things like congressional races and governor's races and things of that nature. They called all the elections correctly the other night, the big broad ones. The odds of President Trump's tariffs being ruled as legal by the Supreme Court collapsed to just 18% in the wake of yesterday's hearings. That means odds are overwhelming at this point that they believe the Supreme Court is going to determine that these tariffs are illegal by the President of the United States. Now, President Trump obviously is of the belief that this is part of the economic prosperity that he believes is building in this country and will have big, big, big benefits come 2026 and beyond. I've been open to the idea of tariffs, but what I've always said is I would have preferred the tariffs be implemented by Congress and pass Congress and actually put those guys and gals to work in Congress. And then you don't have a debate here. But what's being debated is whether or not the president can do it exclusively through executive action. And what does that potentially look like in a future administration? That's what they're debating right now. It's not really whether or not you think tariffs are good or bad or will be beneficial or not to the economy. It's largely driven by whether or not the president can unilaterally put tariffs on some of these countries. And while I do believe his ultimate goal is just free and fair trade, and he's absolutely right when he talks about how we've been getting screwed by a lot of these countries, and it has not been good for the American worker by and large. He's absolutely right with those arguments. The question has been, can he unilaterally do it? And I'll give you a prime example of something that I thought was a bridge too far. Remember, it was like 2 weeks ago, the president got ticked off at Canada because they ran some commercial up there that made him upset.
A Reagan quote on tariffs, yeah.
Yeah, it was a Reagan quote on tariffs. They ran it up in Canada, and Trump's like, you know what? I'm slapping more tariffs on you guys. It's like, okay, I'm willing to be open to the idea that your tariff policies are visionary and can be beneficial when used strategically for the American people. But if it's just like, I got pissed off at the country, so now I'm imposing more tariffs, that's not really what I'm going for here.
Well, it wasn't even the country. It was Ontario even.
Yes.
Yeah, so it'd be like Kansas or somebody rattling his cage.
Yes.
Ontario's bigger than Kansas, just a point.
Yes. No,
not
but
the whole country.
It's the same idea, to your point, and it's a good one. It's like that's where it's like, no, you can sell me on the tariff thing and make the case that when it comes to the American people, there are benefits here. And I'm open to it. And I think that there's actually a decent argument to make on this. But you can't just get pissed off at a commercial and then be like, you know what, I'm going to slap you guys with more tariffs. Well, that's not really about me, the consumer. That's not really about me, the American taxpayer. That's more just about you didn't like a commercial and you got pissed off at Canada and slapped the tariff on them. Like that is the kind of stuff that is too far. So then where do you draw the line? If you're going to say, well, you know, the guy's got the ability to do this and the Supreme Court should approve it, okay, then does that mean, to Neil Gorsuch's point, a Democrat could come in, claim that climate change is an emergency, and slap tariffs on things just because? Is that the road we want to ultimately go down? And once again, this can get solved by Congress, but Congress doesn't do anything. They just don't. So last night on CNN, our old pal Ben Shapiro was on that crazy panel show, whatever it's called. I don't know. The round table where it's usually like 12 people. They've got way too many people on the show. And there's always like one conservative on there. I'll tell you what, the Fox, the 5 has it right. 5 people, 4 and 1, that's easy. On CNN, I mean, they always have panels that are just way too big. On election night, there's like 15 people on their panels. You can't even tell them apart. Except for Wolf Blitzer, who looks constantly constipated. You can't tell any of them apart. So here was Ben Shapiro talking about this tariff thing last night.
Ben, the president has won something like more than 20 cases that have come up to the Supreme Court. Do you see this as a time, after sort of hearing some of the questions that are being asked, where the idea of more presidential power for this president in this case won't fly?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the characterizations of the court that I always find suspect is when people say, even the conservatives on the court are saying this. Okay, the conservatives on the court tend to be textualists, which means that they're actually looking at the text of the Constitution as opposed to sort of a vague peripheral understanding of what the Constitution means. And so when you're looking at the textualists and they are saying the president does not actually have emergency authority to simply impose tariffs on the basis of trade deficits, which is essentially what he's been doing, that is a very conservative position. I've been critical of the president, very critical of the president on his tariff policies themselves, which I think are actually economically wrong and I think are actually damaging to the country in a lot of ways on foreign policy, actually. But that's not what's at issue. The issue here is whether the president has the emergency authority to do this sort of stuff. And I thought that the best question that was asked came from Justice Gorsuch, in which he actually said to the lawyers for the president, if, let's say, the next president decides that on the basis of emergency authority, that climate change is an emergency, and therefore he's going to slap, or she is going to slap a 50% tariff on all automobiles coming into the country, would that president have the authority to do this? And the attorney for the president, President Trump, said yes, they would have the authority to do this. I do not believe that the court, I've said this since literally day one when President Trump announced Liberation. I said that day, this is illegal. The Supreme Court is going to strike this down. He does not actually have the constitutional authority to do this.
So that was Ben Shapiro on CNN last night. And let's be clear before some of you start texting in and saying, Shapiro's a squish. Shapiro was not a Trump guy in 16. We know that. But he was not only a Trump guy in 20 and 24. He was a fundraiser big time a year ago for this president. He was a big endorser. He was a big supporter. And he put his money where his mouth was. And he helped the president raise money. And he's on board with Trump, on 90+% of things. And his read on it is that the Supreme Court is going to strike this down. And the odds makers are also suggesting overwhelmingly that the Supreme Court is going to strike this down. So then the next part of this is, well, are we talking about refunds and rebates? We just talked about rebates with Phil Lavoda in Jackson County. You think that's going to be tough on property taxes? What's it going to look like for refunding tariff money? That's going to be a whole nother mess. The president does have an 11 a.m. Eastern time announcement today. Right now, it's just being teased as a major announcement. I do wonder if he's going to try to get ahead on what is expected to come down from the Supreme Court. I don't know. Or it's going to be something completely irrelevant to try to change the news cycle away from the Supreme Court. Because that's typically how Trump operates. He's smart. He understands the media landscape. So it's either something that's trying to get ahead of the Supreme Court if he does believe that the tariff issue is going to get blocked, or it's going to be something completely irrelevant to take the news cycle away from the Supreme Court issue and the tariff issue. It's going to be one of those two things. That's what's coming.